You know, there's a threat lurking in so many of our homes that can go completely unnoticed. That is, until it's way, way too late. So today, we're going to talk about water damage. We're going to pull back the curtain and show you why this silent invader is truly one of the most serious dangers your home will ever face.
Okay, let's just jump right in with a question for you. When you think about the biggest threats to your home, what pops into your head? Fire? Maybe pests like termites? Sure. But what if I told you the most destructive intruder is probably one you never even hear coming?
And there it is. It's water. You know, it doesn't have the big drama of a fire, but its quiet, sneaky, persistent nature is exactly what makes it so incredibly dangerous. It causes catastrophic damage, almost always out of sight, and it can rot your home from the inside out.
And that really gets to the heart of the problem, which brings us to our first section here. Water's hidden damage. Because, let's be honest, the real danger isn't the little puddle you can see. It's all the destruction that's happening where you can't see a thing.
Now this slide, wow, it really lays it all out, doesn't it? On the left, that's what you might notice, a small stain on the ceiling, a slightly damp spot on the carpet. It seems so minor, you could almost ignore it. But on the right, that's the horror show happening behind the scenes. That tiny leak is silently turning your insulation into a soggy mess. It's warping the very wood framing that holds your house up, and it's kicking off the growth of mold. That unseen damage is what turns a tiny problem into an absolute disaster.
So just how bad can this hidden damage really get? Well, to truly understand the scale of this threat, it actually helps to look at a place that is under constant, relentless pressure. So let's zoom in on a city that is, unfortunately, a perfect case study.
We are heading to Memphis, Tennessee. Now, because of its unique geography and its climate, Memphis basically has a perfect storm for water damage. This makes it an ideal real-world laboratory for us to see these destructive forces in action and to understand how they can affect any home, anywhere. So what's the deal with Memphis? Why is it such a hotspot? Well, it's this crazy combination of factors. First, you've got the city literally sandwiched between two major rivers. Then, the ground itself is a problem. It's this expansive clay that swells up when it's wet and shrinks when it's dry, literally cracking home foundations from underneath. And if that wasn't enough, throw in year-round swamp-like humidity and tons of heavy thunderstorms. It's an environment where water's just constantly trying to get in. And this number really puts it all into perspective. 54 inches of rain every year. Let that sink in. That's 4.5 feet of water falling from the sky, soaking into that tricky clay soil, and putting every single roof, window, and foundation under a constant state of attack.
But here's the thing. The water itself is really just the beginning of the problem. Once it gets inside your walls, it kicks off something much more urgent. And that brings us to our next section, the race against mold. This is a battle against a very, very real ticking clock.
And really, this says it all. The second that materials like drywall or insulation get wet, that clock starts. It is not a question of if a secondary problem like mold is gonna start, it's a question of when. And the timeline, well, it's shockingly fast.
Okay, let's walk through this because it's absolutely crucial. At hour 0, the water gets in. Right away, stuff starts soaking it up. But look what happens next. Within just 24 to 48 hours, that's 1 to 2 days, mold spores, which are basically everywhere all the time, they find that damp spot and they start to colonize. By 72 hours, you can actually see it. At that point, you're not just dealing with a water problem anymore. You have a full-blown mold infestation. That's more complicated, way more expensive to fix, and it's a real risk to your health. That initial 48-hour window, it's everything.
So faced with this really urgent threat, how do the pros even begin to fight back? Well, it is not guesswork, it's a science, and it all comes from what we're calling the restoration playbook. So the entire industry follows this really strict set of standards. It's called the IICRC S500. Now, I know that's a mouthful, but what it basically means is it's the official science-backed rulebook for this stuff. It tells professionals the right way to do everything, from taking out the water to drying out the structure. This standard is what separates a certified pro from some guy with a wetback. It makes sure the job is done completely with no hidden moisture left behind to cause problems later.
And that playbook really boils down to 3 critical phases. Phase 1 is emergency extraction, getting all that standing water out and fast with powerful equipment. Phase 2 is honestly the most important part, structural drying. This is where the pros bring in this whole arsenal of giant dehumidifiers and high-speed fans to literally pull trapped moisture out from deep inside your walls and floors. Only after everything is proven to be bone dry can Phase 3 start, and that's the rebuild and restore, where they replace what was damaged and put your home back together.
Part of this whole professional process is also figuring out what kind of water they're dealing with because, as you can see here, not all water is the same. You've got Category 1, that's clean water from a supply pipe. Category 2 is gray water, like from a dishwasher. It's got some gunk in it. And then there's Category 3, black water. That's the really nasty stuff. Sewage, floodwater, it's seriously contaminated. And knowing the difference is vital because it determines all the safety gear and the procedures needed to handle the job without anyone getting sick.
Okay, so we've talked about the threat, we've talked about the professional solution, but let's make this personal for a second. Let's put you in this scenario. You walk into your basement and there's a growing puddle on the floor. What is the absolute first thing you should do?
All right, here's your 5-step emergency plan. Step 1, and only if it is 100% safe, try to stop the source of the water. Step 2, another safety one. Go to your breaker box and shut off the electricity to that area. Step 3, get any valuables, rugs, furniture, whatever, up and out of the water. Step 4, grab your phone and take pictures and videos of everything. Your insurance company will thank you. And finally, Step 5, the most important one on the list. Call a certified restoration professional immediately.
And that brings us to the single biggest takeaway from all of this. This quote right here says it all. In the fight against water damage, the first hour is more important than the first week. It is all about speed. What you do in that very first hour, stopping the leak, shutting off the power, making that phone call, can mean the difference between a simple repair and a catastrophic mold-filled nightmare. So remember this, when you find water, don't walk, run, and make the call.